Good afternoon, everyone. Or for our friends in Australia that might have a chance to be listening, I'd like to say good day. My name is Bob Simpson. I'm Vice President of Expedition Cruising at Abercrombie in Kent. You normally hear from me talking about cold and polar regions. I'm extremely excited to be here today with you presenting our new expedition for the Kimberley region that we have planned for next year. The program's scheduled for June 20th to July 2nd, 2019. This will be our inaugural expedition through the Kimberleys, so we're extremely excited to be adding this to our portfolio of programs. As with all of our luxury expedition cruise programs, we're fully chartering and operating the new and beautiful La Perouse. Likewise, with all of our programs, we strategically limit our passenger capacity on board, and I'll explain this in a few minutes, but typically between 75 to 80% of what the ship's designed to carry. So we'll have no more than 140 passengers, guests on this program, and I'll explain a little bit more detail on that here in a few minutes. This itinerary really, it offers a glimpse into the rarely visited and very remote Kimberley coast in the region along the Kimberley coastline in northwest Australia. From Broome to Darwin. It's led by our A&K award-winning expedition team, our seasoned experts, our field naturalists, and really give you a glimpse into the history, the amazing culture, geology, and the wildlife in this really spectacular region. So real quick, just a quick overview of the program. We'll begin in the northwest Australia city of Broome. We have 2 nights scheduled in Broome, and especially for our guests flying from the U.S. or from far away. We've got a good group of passengers that I know that are coming from South Africa. You'll have 2 nights and just some time to acclimate from the travels, and then have a 10-night expedition program along the remote and rugged Kimberley coast. I'll explain in a few minutes. We also have extension to group extension in Margaret River outside of Perth, the wine country. So some of our guests would be flying via Perth. Even flying internationally, you might fly through Perth. So the access points from the air standpoint would be from Melbourne or Perth into Broome, arriving midday to afternoon and on the 20th, and then you'll have 2 nights here in Broome. From there, we head off 10 nights on board. Our first expedition stop is planned at the Lassapede Islands. One thing to note, this itinerary is extremely dependent upon tides and other conditions. So we work with that as we kind of go along. So from the Lassapedes, we head over into Talbot Bay and the Buccaneer Archipelago. We have a great experience planned excursion with horizontal falls in the Talbot Bay area and doing zodiacs. We'll head along up to the Prince Frederick Harbor and Hunter River Gorge area. We've got an included excursion by helicopter over the Mitchell Falls Plateau to Mitchell Falls. So that's part of the program. So much of our itinerary is very much focused as well on Aboriginal art and culture and some of these rock art galleries. So our first experience with that is going to be at Swift Bay. We also, as I mentioned, there's so much of this program that's affected by tides and the horizontal falls. You'll see that as an experiential component of that, but also at Montgomery Reef. It's a large reef system that gets completely exposed at low tide, so we'll have a chance to get out in zodiacs there at Monty. We'll head on to King George River, the gorge, and for our active guests, you'll have a chance to hike up the cliff hike. So definitely our active guests up to the top of King George River Falls. Beautiful experience there. On into Wyndham, we've got an included flight seeing experience over the Bungle Bungle from Wyndham. We clear out of Australia immigration, so we have a day at sea, which is great because we get a chance to, this is a very busy itinerary, so you get a chance to have some enrichment experiences and lectures and such. We clear out into Indonesian waters and then back into Darwin where we finish the program. And as I mentioned, we have a pre-cruise group extension for Margaret River, and we have a post-cruise extension for Arnhem Land. And I'll go through those in a few minutes as well. So I'm going to start with our platform for the expedition, the La Perouse. And I mentioned before, it's designed to carry over 180 passengers. And our our Kimberley program will have no more than 140 guests on board, and there's a couple of key reasons why. One is that we put a pretty extensive team on board, our enrichment team and our naturalists, so we do take up some guest accommodation with that. We use all of the two-room suite configured cabins as two-room suites, not as individual cabins. But really most importantly is for our expedition operations and our field experience. This is, you know, a program where, like I said, we spend a lot of time out in the zodiacs, a lot of time in the field, and just from an operational perspective, it manages so much better with a specific number of passengers. So no more than 140 guests. Again, that's about 75% of what the ship's designed to carry. And what does that also mean? It means that translates to a great level of service on board. There's not a reduction in crew for the service on board. So the feeling of space, comfort, and just overall service, I can tell you, is dramatically increased on the A&K programs where we strategically limit our capacity. So just to give you a little bit of a sort of an overview of the experience on board, as with all of our programs, we do feature an open bar. Most of the bar drinks that are included, fantastic, you know, food and gastronomical experience for you. On A&K programs, only on A&K programs do we feature butler service in all of the suite categories on board. So you do have a butler service that provides the butler service for all of the suites on board the ship, no matter which deck you're on. New for 2019 is our A&K valet service, which is a laundry service component that's included for you on board. We include complimentary Wi-Fi on board. I mentioned the open bar and all other gratuities for the crew, the expedition team, all included as well. Now, the program is going to be led by our award-winning team. If you've traveled with us, some of these faces you're going to recognize. This is our senior leadership team. It starts with our expedition director, Susana Machado de Oliveira. Sorry, say that 3 times fast. Sue has been with us for over 20 years. She really oversees our overall guest experience for the program, whether it's on board or you know, from the beginning to the end of the program. But the program is going to be led by our expedition leader, Brad Clemson. Brad's from North Queensland. He is a veteran of many Kimberley expedition programs. So he's going to be running our expedition field experience and Zodiac operations and such. On board, everything's going to be taken care of for our guests. Our cruise director, Paul Carter. He's assisted by Sally Escanilla. And then I mentioned before, we've got an extensive team. So we'll have 7 additional field naturalists that will be also driving Zodiacs, including Rich Pagan that you see here on the lower right. We have a number of enrichment experts. Bart Pegram that you see here, he's a native of Broome. He'll be focusing primarily on the Aboriginal cultures. Philip Schubert, he grew up in the Kimberley on cattle stations. His dad was the CEO of a mining company as well, but he grew up in the Kimberley, and he's got an amazing background of experience, including as a pilot and also a boat captain, mapping much of the Kimberley coast. So he's also an amazing photographer, so he's going to be assisting our photo coach, who many of you may know, Richard Harker, with all the photo coaching on board. So I'm going to give you a quick tour of the ship. I mentioned the La Perouse. It just launched this year. It's a fantastic, beautiful ship. We're just starting a program in Greece in a couple of days. We can't be more excited to have this ship in the Kimberley for us. So from the moment you get on board, you'll feel the sleek elegance. It really persists throughout the ship. The main dining room you see here, again, built to accommodate over 180 passengers. We'll have far less than that, so it's going to be a quite comfortable and intimate experience for dining. Here you see the main lounge. The main lounge also services both indoor and outdoor, so you can be inside enjoying a drink, or you can go out by the pool deck. It's got a full-service bar outside as well. Panoramic lounge forward up on deck 6. Again, all the bar drinks and everything included for you. You've got an outdoor viewing area just outside of the panoramic lounge as well. Beautiful theater, state-of-the-art theater. We have the Blue Eye Lounge, which is a new feature on the La Perouse and the Explorer vessels. It's really a multi-sensory experience. So it's a beautiful setting and ambiance there for the Blue Eye Lounge. Beautiful spa, the hammam. And accommodations, we have really a handful of cabins left on this program, so I would encourage you to call as quick as possible if you're keen to join us to see what's available. This is one of the stateroom cabins. Again, all the cabins and staterooms and suites feature private balcony on board La Perouse. Okay, so let's go through the program. Again, as I mentioned, we start in Broome. So we have our first 2 nights. A lot of you will be traveling from quite a distance, so you'll have plenty of time to acclimate when you arrive. Broome's just a fantastic town. It's a beautiful seaside. It's on the Dampier Peninsula. Beautiful coastline, beautiful turquoise waters. It's got a fascinating history. The traditional landowners here are the Yawuru people. That goes back, predates European colonization, but in the late 1800s, it really boomed with the onset of the pearling industry, which really kind of created quite a hierarchy structure in Broome that you still see some sort of remnants of that even today. It's got quite a bit of history of World War II. The Japanese bombed this area, in Perth in particular, with a number of civilian fatalities. A number of times, Japanese bombers that hit Perth. So you'll learn a lot just about the area while you're here. We have 2 hotels that we have our group in. Because of the size of the group that we have, we've got 2 different hotels: the Kimberley Sands Resort, beautiful hotel, and also the Cable Beach Resort, located on the north end of Cable Beach. The Kimberley Sands is easy walking distance to the Cable Beach Nature Reserve and Cable Beach itself. Both hotels will have a full-service hospitality desk set up both on the 20th and the 21st. So anything that you need, we'll have our staff and our team there. They'll be able to help you with any arrangements that you need, sightseeing that you might want to do on your independently, dinner reservations, things of that nature. One recommendation that I'd like to point out real quick, there's a very interesting phenomenon that really only occurs in Broome. It's called the staircase to the moon, and it happens only a couple of days each month in between March and October, and it happens to be June 18th, 19th, and 20th. And what it is, it's a phenomenon where the full moon rises up from the west over Roebuck. You see it from looking out over Roebuck Bay, and it looks like this golden staircase that just you can walk on to go to the moon. It's just a fantastic experience. It's a very specific time on each of those days. I'll tell you, and if you have any questions, call us. 6:17 p.m. on the 18th, 7:09 on the 19th, 8:01 on the 20th. And it's very specific in terms of place and time. So our staff can help you if you're interested. If you get there a couple of days early, or even arriving on the 20th, you want to head out to the beach at Roebuck Bay and see the staircase to the moon, you want to do that. It's a great experience. You'll have a full day to relax on the 21st. We'll have a group gala dinner out on the auditorium, which you see that grass area. We'll have a big tented area set up. That's where we'll have a group gala dinner and welcome dinner and entertainment and briefing for the program. On the 22nd, the day that we embark the ship, we'll have, after breakfast, all the luggage will be collected and taken to the quay. Then you'll have a choice of 3 different excursions. If you're a birding enthusiast, we have one excursion that does a birding excursion through the mangroves and to the Broome Birding Observatory. If you want to take more of a traditional sort of best of Broome, we have a historical tour that's by coach that'll get a chance to get an overall perspective of Broome. And then we also have a more active sort of walking excursion that's led by one of our local Broome cultural experts that will be sort of a historical walking excursion through Broome. And it kind of bridges the history of the Aboriginal culture and traditional landowners all the way to current day Broome. So it's a fascinating cultural experience. All of the excursions will end at our lunch venue, where we'll have a lunch. It's right in the heart of Broome, sort of near Chinatown. We'll have lunch, do the cruise check in there, and then you'll have a bit of time to do any last minute shopping or walking around there in Chinatown or in downtown Broome before we head out to the quay, and then we'll board the La Perouse to begin the expedition. So we'll head out, again, 10 nights, and I want to stress again, this is very fluid in terms of the itinerary depending on the tidal sort of conditions and changes. We've pretty much mapped out our itinerary based on what we have in terms of current tidal projections, but they usually don't finalize until really it'll be about a month from now, but we don't anticipate any changes. But Lac Islands is our first expedition stop. This is a group of low-lying islands about 50 miles off the coast of the Dampier Peninsula. It's a fantastic wildlife area. It's a designated IBA, which is an important birding area. And you got a wide variety of amazing population of terns and gulls and oyster catchers, frigate birds, some great aquatic animals, some green turtles, sea snakes. In the Lassipede Channel in particular, you get a chance to hopefully see some humpback whales. We saw quite a few breaching when we were there this summer. So you get some whale watching experience. But really the big star here at the Lassipedes is the brown boobies. The Lassipede, it's a very small little group of islands, but it supports more than 1% of the world's population of brown boobies. There's 18,000 breeding pair just alone in this little island group. So it's really the largest single collection of population anywhere in the world. So it's a great birding experience. So off we are to Talbot Bay is our next stop. And I mentioned before that the dramatic tide sort of changes. The Kimberley region has the second most dramatic tidal changes anywhere in the world. It's second to the Bay of Fundy, which is in coastal maritime Canada. I don't know this scientifically or as fact, but I kind of did a little experiment myself to determine why that is the case. And if you draw a laser through the globe, get a globe if you have one in your office, through the Bay of Fundy in maritime Canada, all the way through, it would come out right around the same area. So I don't know if the polar sort of setup is what dictates, but dramatic tides, and you can see even here on this slide the difference in the coloration along the coastline. And so we have an excursion planned at Horizontal Falls. Sir David Attenborough, the great David Attenborough, calls this one of the great wonders of the world. And when we're there on June 24th, we'll be there at neap tide. Neap tide is sort of a higher tide, and it's actually a great opportunity because it won't be a maximum flow, so we'll have a chance to get into the Horizontal Falls with the Zodiacs. If you're there at really low tide where there's a really heavy flow, the Zodiacs cannot get through. So there are opportunities to get special boats and things like that, but you get a great perspective by doing it by Zodiac and going through the Horizontal Falls. And we'll spend a full day in this area and then also do Zodiac excursion along sort of this area of Talbot Bay and the dramatic colors of the rock and the sandstone. It's just a fantastic geological experience really throughout the Kimberley. And our geologists on board, both Phil Schubert as well as Jason Hicks, who's our geologist, that will be able to give a full perspective of all of this throughout. So it's just amazing. Again, you can see the coloration difference in the tidal changes. That's daily, right? It goes up and down sort of that much. The next morning, we plan to be at Montgomery Reef. And again, it's a phenomenon of the tides. And as the tide lowers, we get out in the Zodiacs, and you get a great perspective here. This is looking out over the reef, and you just see this cascading water, almost like waterfalls coming off of the reef here at Montgomery Reef. So this is a great Zodiac excursion in the morning. Again, great aquatic animals that you'll see here as well. Different birds, feasting on the exposed reef here as well. So I mentioned before, one of the key elements that we really focus on is the element of Aboriginal culture, and particularly rock art. So there's a number of galleries that have very distinct different types of styles of rock art. And the first that we visit will be at Freshwater Cove. It's a fairly easy hike to get to the cave. It's a cyclone cave. It actually was it was a protective area, for the clans that lived here going back centuries and even beyond. So it's got a long amount of history. So we'll have our local experts that will really give sort of a full depiction and commentary of what we're seeing here. And it's interesting because the art itself continues to be refreshed, and you can see in some of it, the drawings they look more dramatic and fresh, and it's a very specific entitlement that has passed down generation to generation, and not just anybody can go in and do this. They have to be designated as a caretaker of the art. So you get to learn a lot about that as well. Here's two of our guides. Neil, the guy in the foreground, a very interesting guy. He actually went off to school in Perth when he was younger, and he became quite a quite a good basketball player. He played on some championship teams, and he's a huge, huge basketball fan. And he and I were talking. He found out I was from Chicago, and it reminds me when I go next summer, I have to bring back for him a Chicago Bulls jersey. He wants a Michael Jordan jersey. But just a fantastic group of guys that you'll meet here as well. Great birding opportunities for us as well. Now, next on our itinerary is Frederick Harbor, and we have the opportunity here to take a helicopter excursion. This is included in the program. You do have the option to opt out if you don't want to take a helicopter. We understand that, but it is included, and you get a chance to fly over the Mitchell Plateau to Mitchell Falls. La Perouse just anchors right there in the harbor. We zodiac to the beach. Our helicopters will come in, they'll land, and we'll take the flight up over the amazing plateau. And it's a different perspective as well. The entire itinerary, you're down either along the coastline and you're looking up these dramatic cliffs. Once you get up above that, it's a plateau area that is immense. And so it's a different perspective as you're flying. And then on to Mitchell Falls. We'll have our staff there. You'll have a couple of hours at Mitchell Falls to hike and sort of explore around. There's freshwater pools, so you get a chance to do a swim, a freshwater pool swim. And then in the afternoon, we'll fly back, we'll have lunch, and then in the afternoon, we'll do a zodiac excursion up the Hunter River Gorge here at Frederick Harbor. And this is where we'll get a chance to really start seeing some of the saltwater crocodiles, and that's just amazing. These huge, huge animals, and some of them grow to be, 15 to 20 feet. It's just amazing. Our next rock art experience is going to be at Swift Bay, and I mentioned before the distinct style. So this is the style that we saw before at Freshwater Cove, and you'll notice here the fresh sort of touched art that I mentioned before. Different styles represent different periods of time, and one of the most amazing is really these what are called Guion or Bradshaw art, and these are the ones that are suspected to be almost the oldest, but very simplistic sort of stick figure kind of figures in the drawing. So you'll see the different styles of the rock art as you go through the different galleries, and there's a number of galleries here around Swift Bay with the different styles as well. Just an amazing cultural experience. King George River Falls, this is next on our itinerary. Again, dramatic scenery that you have here. And I mentioned before, we spend a lot of time out in the zodiacs. We have quite a zodiac ride to get to the headwaters of King George River Falls, up this sort of dramatic gorge. It's about hour by zodiac going flat out, so you'll spend a lot of time in the boat, see a lot of different wildlife along the way, and then we head on to the King George River Falls. So I mentioned before there's an opportunity to get up to the top of the falls, and in order to do that, you do have quite a hike, and you can't quite see it in this image, but just to the lower right, there is a pathway that goes up the cliff. It is quite rigorous, so we really test to make sure that those that try it are going to be able to do it. But you can get up to the top of the plateau. When I was there in August, the falls were completely dry. So you see that flow. Imagine no water at all coming off, and it's just that black sort of algae that's on the falls. When we're there in late June, you're going to have a good dramatic flow. So you'll have a full effect of the falls, and this is sort of an effect once you're up at the top, if you are able to take the hike up to the top of the gorge here. This was with no flow. So again, you can see I'm standing where the waterfall is rushing later in June. So you won't be able to stand in the same spot, but you can see the dramatic, beautiful. So it's a great time of the year for us to be there, sort of after the end of the wet season, before it really gets into the dry season, which is when I was there in August. Right, so next on to Wyndham, And from Wyndham, we have a couple of different options. One is again, these are included in the program. If you're up to a fixed wing aircraft flight, it's a dramatic flight over the beautiful Bungle region. We have the aircraft that seats, depending on the size, 8 to 12 passengers, and it's about a 2-hour flight. So we have two different groups, one that will board the aircraft in Wyndham and take the flight up over Lake Argyle and Ord River Dam and the plateau area to the Bungle. And then we have about 30 minutes flying around the Bungle, which you see there on the right. Those amazing pillars of sandstone that are 350, 400 million years old. It's a designated World Heritage Site, one of the newest in Australia. It's very seldomly visited, actually. This is sort of the new Ayers Rock for Australia, but it's a beautiful, amazing experience. So our first group will board the planes, do the flight, land in Kununurra. We have a lunch included at the Kimberley Grand Resort. Our second group will depart the ship a little bit later, drive to Kununurra, join the group for lunch, and then take the flight coming back, and then group one will drive back to Wyndham from there. So it's about a 2.5 to 3 hour experience all in terms of the flight. Again, Bungle is just an amazing experience as you fly over. It's very reminiscent of Bryce Canyon or Zion National Park in southern Utah. Just an amazing array of color and geology here. If you're not up for the flight, you are able to take the cruise up the Ord River. This is just a fantastic experience. It's a whole different perspective of wildlife. Here we have some of the freshwater crocodiles, the freshies. I read somewhere that they don't attack humans. I'm not sure if I believe that. I don't think I would jump in the water with them, but they're sort of designated as less aggressive and hostile as the saltwater crocs that you'll see during the course of the cruise as well. But great opportunity for birds and wildlife along the cruise. We'll have a chance to visit the Ord River Dam. It's the Argyle River, or Argyle Lake, which is the largest man-made lake in all of Australia as well. I mentioned we clear out of Australia into Indonesian waters for immigration purposes, and then back to Darwin, and we finish in Darwin on July 2nd, and you'll have a chance to either spend some time here, depending on your where you're flying to. You might have a later flight. Most of the flights, if you're flying back from Darwin, are later in the evening. We will have different options included for you, depending on your flight time, either straight to the airport, city tour of Darwin with lunch to the airport, or if you needed to book an additional accommodation, you can let us know, and we can book a day room if you have even a much later flight in the evening. Now, a couple of other nuggets for you. We have our group extension that we have for the Margaret River area outside of Perth. We have a few spots left on this extension. We do have a limit of capacity. I think we've got at least a couple of rooms left that we can book you on. So if you are interested, please let us know. Even for our Australian guests, it's a long way from the east coast to the west. So if you haven't been to the Margaret River, it's a great opportunity. You'll arrive in Perth. It's a 4-day extension. This is again before the program arriving in Broome. Just to explore the region, we'll have 2 nights at the Pan Pacific in Perth, 2 nights at the Cape Lodge in Margaret River. You'll indulge in wine tastings at the prize wineries with paired meals. So again, we have a few spots on this extension, so please call us if you're interested. And at the conclusion of the voyage, after we disembark in Darwin, you can take a group extension to the Arnhem Land, which we have a private charter flight arranged for our passengers that are taking this group extension. It's to the largest Aboriginal reserve in all of Australia. We have 2 nights at the Davidson Safari Lodge in Arnhem Land. It's all active excursions. You have trekking opportunities, fishing opportunities. There's a billabong cruise for wildlife and an additional indigenous rock art experience. We'll return by private charter flight back to Darwin, and have one night at the end in Darwin before you fly out from Darwin at the end of the program. So that is our June 20th to July 2nd, 2019 Kimberley expedition. We could not be more excited to be offering this program. As I said, we've had a great level of sales activity already. We have just a few cabins that are left. We do encourage, if you are interested, please contact either our office here in the U.S. or for our friends in Australia, please contact our office in Melbourne, and they can give you all the details on what's available and any additional details of the program. If you do have any other questions for us, feel free to contact us at any time. You can visit our website to get more detail on the program at abercrombiekent.com. And we do look forward to having you join us on our Kimberley expedition next June in 2019. Thank you very much.